What if the biggest story in America isn't inflation, jobs, or the cost of living? What if it's a growing confrontation with Iran that could reshape the global economy, affect oil prices, and even influence the next US election? While millions of Americans remain concerned about rising prices, interest rates, and economic uncertainty, President Donald Trump has once again placed Iran at the center of his foreign policy agenda. New military threats, escalating tensions in the Middle East, and strong warnings directed at Tehran have raised one important question. Why is Trump prioritizing Iran over the economy? Is this purely about national security? Is it about stopping Iran's regional influence? Or is there a deeper political and economic strategy behind these decisions? In today's video, we'll examine the facts, explore multiple expert viewpoints, and explain why the Iran issue has become one of the most important challenges facing the Trump administration. We'll also look at what this could mean for global markets, oil prices, and ordinary Americans. Recent developments include renewed U.S. military threats toward Iran and concerns over attacks affecting shipping and energy markets, which have kept the Middle East at the center of international attention. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss our latest updates on global politics, immigration, and international affairs. Now, let's get started. America's biggest challenge. Since returning to the White House, Donald Trump has repeatedly emphasized that America's strength depends on both economic growth and national security. However, during recent weeks, headlines have focused less on inflation and employment and more on military developments involving Iran. The administration argues that Iran's actions threaten U.S. forces, allies, and global energy supplies. Officials say these security concerns cannot be ignored, even while the economy remains a top domestic issue. Critics, however, argue that voters are more worried about everyday economic issues such as the cost of living, housing, and interest rates. This creates an important political question. Can a president successfully focus on foreign policy while voters remain concerned about economic conditions? That debate is now unfolding across Washington. Why Iran matters. Iran occupies one of the world's most strategic locations. It sits near the Strait of Hormuz, one of the busiest energy shipping routes on Earth. A significant share of global oil passes through this narrow waterway every day. Whenever tensions rise in the region, investors immediately worry about disruptions to oil supplies. Higher oil prices often lead to higher gasoline prices, increased transportation costs, rising inflation, more pressure on consumers worldwide. Recent attacks and military exchanges have renewed concerns about shipping through the region, contributing to volatility in global energy markets. That means events thousands of miles away can directly affect the price people pay at the gas station. Trump's position. President Trump has consistently argued that Iran represents a serious strategic challenge. According to statements from his administration, key objectives include limiting Iran's military capabilities, deterring attacks on U.S. interests and allies, and maintaining stability in vital shipping lanes. Supporters believe a firm approach sends a clear message that the United States will respond to threats. They argue that showing strength now could prevent larger conflicts later. Opponents disagree. They question whether increased military pressure could instead lead to broader regional instability and greater economic risks. This difference in opinion has become one of the biggest foreign policy debates of the year. How the Iran crisis could affect the U.S. economy. Now that we've explored why Iran remains a major focus of the Trump administration, let's look at the question many Americans are asking. How does this affect the economy? At first glance, foreign policy and household finances may seem unrelated. But in today's interconnected world, they are closely linked. Whenever tensions rise in the Middle East, global financial markets react almost immediately. Investors become concerned that conflict could disrupt oil production or shipping routes, particularly through the Strait of Hormuz, one of the world's busiest energy corridors. If oil supplies are interrupted, crude oil prices often increase. Higher oil prices can lead to more expensive gasoline, higher transportation costs, increased food prices, rising inflation, greater pressure on businesses and consumers. For families already managing the cost of living, even a modest increase in fuel prices can have a noticeable impact. This is why international conflicts are often closely watched by economists as well as military analysts. The Political Balancing Act. President Trump now faces two major priorities. The first is maintaining a strong national security strategy. The second is protecting economic confidence at home. These goals don't always move in the same direction. A tougher foreign policy may reassure allies and strengthen America's international position, but prolonged geopolitical tensions can also create uncertainty in financial markets. Political analysts say this creates a delicate balancing act. If the administration appears too passive, critics may argue that American interests are not being protected. If it appears too aggressive, opponents may warn that military tensions could increase inflation and damage economic growth. Finding the right balance is one of the biggest leadership challenges for any president. Supporters' perspective. Trump supporters argue that national security must always come first. From their point of view, allowing Iran to expand its regional influence could create even greater risks in the future. They believe that strong diplomatic pressure, economic sanctions, and military deterrence reduce the likelihood of larger conflicts later. Supporters also argue that demonstrating strength enhances America's credibility with allies and discourages hostile actions by adversaries. In their view, short-term economic uncertainty is preferable to long-term security threats. Critics' perspective. Critics see the situation differently. They argue that the administration should devote more attention to domestic priorities such as inflation, housing affordability, healthcare costs, and job creation. Some foreign policy experts also warn that escalating tensions with Iran could unintentionally increase instability across the Middle East. They point out that prolonged uncertainty may discourage investment, affect international trade, and keep energy prices elevated. Others argue that diplomacy should remain the preferred path whenever possible. These competing viewpoints continue to shape public debate across the United States. International reactions. America's allies are watching developments closely. European governments have generally called for restraint and dialogue, emphasizing the importance of preventing further escalation. Meanwhile, countries across Asia are monitoring energy markets because many rely heavily on Middle Eastern oil imports. Major economies such as China, India, Japan, and South Korea all have significant interests in keeping global energy supplies stable. Even nations far from the Middle East could experience economic consequences if oil prices remain volatile. This demonstrates how regional conflicts can produce worldwide effects. Scenario 3. Regional escalation. The most concerning scenario would involve a significant military escalation. A larger conflict could disrupt international shipping routes, affect global oil supplies, and increase instability across the Middle East. Such a situation would likely have consequences far beyond the region. Energy prices could rise sharply. Stock markets might become more volatile. Global trade could face additional challenges. This is why governments around the world continue urging restraint and diplomacy. Why this matters beyond America. Many people assume this is simply a dispute between Washington and Tehran. In reality, the consequences extend much further. Countries across Europe, Asia, and the Middle East closely monitor developments because the region plays a vital role in global energy security. Businesses, investors, airlines, shipping companies, and financial institutions all pay close attention to geopolitical risks. Even consumers who never follow international politics may feel the effects through higher fuel prices or increased costs for goods and services. This is one reason why events in the Middle East often dominate global headlines. Trump's leadership strategy. Supporters of President Trump argue that his approach reflects a broader foreign policy philosophy, projecting strength to deter potential threats. They believe that taking a firm stance against Iran demonstrates resolve, reassures allies, and protects American strategic interests. From this perspective, addressing security challenges today helps prevent larger crises tomorrow. Critics, however, argue that diplomacy should remain the first option whenever possible. They contend that reducing tensions could help create greater stability for both international security and the global economy. The debate reflects two different schools of thought on how best to protect national interests. The bigger picture, the central question remains: why is Trump prioritizing Iran over the economy? The answer is likely more complex than choosing one issue over another. Supporters believe that national security is a foundation for long-term economic stability. Critics argue that domestic economic concerns should receive greater attention because they directly affect millions of Americans. In practice, foreign policy and economic policy are deeply connected. Events overseas can influence inflation, energy prices, financial markets, and voter confidence at home. This is why decisions made in Washington often have global consequences. Final thoughts: as the situation continues to evolve, policymakers will face difficult choices. Every decision carries potential benefits as well as risks. Whether the administration emphasizes military deterrence, diplomatic engagement, or a combination of both, the outcome will shape not only US-Iran relations but also global economic stability. One thing is certain: the relationship between geopolitics and the economy has never been more important. The choices made today could influence international security, energy markets, and political debates for years to come. Only time will reveal whether President Trump's strategy strengthens America's position, or creates new challenges both at home and abroad. Outro. Thank you for watching. If you found this analysis informative, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Global Visa Hub, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our latest updates on world affairs, geopolitics, immigration, and global policy. What do you think? Do you believe Trump's focus on Iran is primarily about national security, or should the administration place greater emphasis on domestic economic issues? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.